On this day, June 30th, 2013, the city of Yarnell, Arizona would never be the same again after this very crazy event that killed 19 firefighters. So, before we talk about how the firefighters died on June 30th, we first have to go back 2 days earlier to June 28th. That is where, around the city of Yarnell, a large thunderstorm was hitting the area. So let's first get some perspective. You see this big rock right there, and this rock right there. Right in between them, on the other side of the ridge, is where a lightning bolt struck. That lightning bolt, after it struck, started a fire. This fire quickly grew from a 2-acre fire to a 6-acre fire, and that fire would continue to grow. As the fire continued to grow, the Yarnell fire station sent some firefighters up to the fire on the south side so they can try to prevent it from spreading. But now we fast forward 2 days later to June 30th, and the fire has continued to spread. At this point, the fire has reached 100 acres in size, and then everyone realized that if the fire was not burned out within the next 24 to 48 hours, the towns of Peoples Valley and Yarnell could be threatened by the fire. On June 30th at around 7 a.m., Yarnell Hill Fire District held a meeting to discuss their course of action on what to do with this fire. One group that was in this meeting was the Granite Mountain Hotshots. Even though they were a relatively new group of hotshots, they were very experienced. During the meeting, they used Google Maps on an iPad to discuss their plan. So here is the plan. The Granite Mountain vehicles were positioned right around here. 19 of the 20 members will go to the heel of the fire and create an anchor point, while the member that was left behind will be positioned right around here as a lookout. So just in case the fire for some reason switched sides and started heading south, then the hotshots will go on their escape route all the way down to Boulder Spring Ranch right here. A pretty good plan. The hotshot member that was chosen as the lookout was this guy, Brendan McDonough. While McDonough was being delivered, the 19 hotshots managed to make it to the anchor point, and when they established it, they managed to burn off the 2-track road and then eventually burn off the rest of the fire around it. And then afterwards, they have lunch right around here. As McDonough is continuing to survey the weather, he actually realizes that a storm is starting to form around the area. He informs Eric, who is the chief of the hotshots, and then he informs the National Weather Service. And the National Weather Service says that the storm could produce 40-mile-an-hour gusts to the south, which would actually push the fire towards the hotshots. And then Eric realizes that they're in big trouble. So the hotshots, at this point, were right behind this ridge. McDonough was somewhere over there, along with the vehicles, and around this time, one of the crew members picked him up and took him all the way back here, while the fire was still raging all across this area. At this point, the fire had run through Peoples Valley, and at this point, the fire was just starting to hit the edge of Yarnell, right back there, and the firemen realized they have to now go on their escape route. From this point on, Granite Mountain's location and escape route is unknown, but what we do know suggests the following path. So as you see, they followed down the 2-track road, and as they continued on, right here, they reached a saddle. But because they're on top of a mountain, they have a clear view of the fire. But when they start heading down the saddle, that is when things start to go wrong. Because while they're heading down the saddle, this big mountain right here is cutting off their view of the fire, so they can't see the fire. It is only when they kept going right about here, when they got out of the saddle, that they realized something horrible has happened. So the fire started right behind this ridge right here. The hotshots were probably right around this area. The fire, at this point, had run through Peoples Valley, right over there. The fire was just starting to hit the edge of Yarnell, right there. And the hotshots decided to go on their escape route all the way down to Boulder Spring Ranch, right there. On their way down, we don't know their exact route, but they came and reached a saddle right here. So the fire is like right over here. So they have a clear view of the fire, but then they started heading down the saddle right here. This mountain right here is blocking off the view of the fire. So they can't see the fire. And they don't know that the 40-mile-an-hour wind is pushing the fire all the way towards them, but they don't know because they're heading down the hill. At this point, the hotshots are right where that circle is right there. And now they have a full view of the fire, but the fire, they realized, is now starting to cut off their escape route. And the fire is now quickly pushing towards them right there. So, they decide to deploy some fire shelters. And as the fire came down, they got overrun by the fire. At this point, the hotshots are right where that flagpole is right there. The saddle that cut them off of the view of the fire is right here. The fire at this point was all the way over there, but then the 40-mile-an-hour wind shifted the direction of the fire, so the fire cut them off right here, and then started to breeze at 10 to 12 miles an hour back up towards them. And by the time the firemen saw the fire and deployed their fire shelters, at the time from right here to right over there was approximately less than 2 minutes. So the fire cut them off right up there, and after it cut off the escape route, it started sweeping through this area. And if you look on this tree, you could see some burn marks from the fire. And even right here, this stick, as you see, is completely black, which indicates that this stick survived the fire. But I'm gonna leave it here. After the fire was done, a helicopter was called to the area to look for the hotshots because they weren't responding on their radio transmissions. Finally, when the helicopter found them, they were all right there. And unfortunately, all 19 of the firefighters, unfortunately, did not survive the fire. The only member of the hotshots that did survive the fire was the lookout, Brendan McDonough. In the aftermath of the Yarnell Hill fire, 130 buildings were burnt to the ground, 20 people were injured, and 19 people died. All of the 19, including almost all of the members of the Granite Mountain Hotshots. Anyways, let's just take a couple seconds to honor all the 19 hotshots that died in the horrible fire while trying to save the town of Yarnell.